want Republicans dead.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
The women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions.
On January 6th of 2021, you had tens of thousands of people peacefully protesting.
So, it's not a right-wing conspiracy theory. It's not QAnon. It's real.
Hey folks, it's Rick. Welcome back to the Enemies List podcast. It's a solo episode today because I wanted to break down for you the things that were in my head after the convention. And I want to start out with the speech. I'm going to work backward a little bit because there were a lot of other things that worked very well in the convention, but the speech Kamala Harris performed last Thursday, and I'm recording this on Sunday. I've been thinking about it for 4 days now. And I think it was probably one of the most effective political speeches I've heard in years. Now, I'm not saying it was the best possible speech. I might have constructed it a little bit differently, but but the effect of it, the power of it, the reach of the speech, I don't think people have fully understood it yet. And look, I wondered for a long time what the speech was going to sound like and feel like and look like and how it would be delivered. I wondered if she was going to get sucked in to what I call the Benetton problem of the Democratic Party, where every speech, every policy paper, every event, everything all the time has to have some commentary about every constituency in the Democratic Party. She did not. I was worried it could become like this laundry list of, ideological checkbox items. It did not. It had a couple of checkbox items, but it was de minimis in that regard. And I also was wondering if it was going to be the speech that I was dreading. And I'll be honest with you, I was dreading Hillary Part 2. I'm a woman, hear me roar, glass ceiling. And look, no disrespect, but Kamala Harris didn't go out there to say she was running as an African-American woman or a South Asian woman or a woman. She went out there to run for president. She walked on that stage to run for the White House, to run for the role, the job, the title, and what they call the glorious burden of the presidency. And the speech that she constructed and delivered did just that. That speech was built to talk to the center of America. It was built to do a very smart thing to bifurcate the potential Trump voting pool. You think of MAGA, perhaps in your minds, as this cohesive, unified, absolute Republican movement. It's fragile. It's always been fragile. It's always been built around his personality. And there are millions of Republicans. 22 million of them voted for Nikki Haley this last time around. There are millions of never Trump Republicans. We talk to them all the time at the Lincoln Project. And she made a very, very conscious and smart decision. She did not fall into the trap that many politicians have fallen into. She did not fall in the trap that most of the mainstream media has fallen into, which is to treat the MAGA movement as if it is deserving of respect. Did she talk to other Republicans and conservatives with respect? She did. Did she talk about things that we can share, center left, center right, independent, liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat? She did. And I want to talk about that for a moment because I think the way she addressed things like national security, the way she addressed things like the border, the way she addressed things like the chance to have economic opportunity in the country, all of those things add up to a picture for those moderate Republicans who are out there in states like Pennsylvania, out there in states like Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona. Those people who saw and heard that speech did not hear the caricature flaming radical of Fox News fame. No one came out of that speech thinking that Kamala Harris was a communist eager to seize the means of production. That is a fantasy shared by the MAGA world. So she didn't address them. She didn't ask them to come over. She didn't ask them for their votes, just as Donald Trump would never ask anyone who isn't a worshiper of his for his vote. I think it's important to understand that because Trump has broken the ideological backbone of the party, because he is a nihilist, he believes in nothing. He's the Carl Hungus of former presidents. This guy believes in nothing. He's changed his position last week on abortion 3 times. He has an infinitely malleable sense of what he believes in, and will tell his people they've always believed it. It's Orwellian, but it's Trumpian. So she wasn't trying to say the people who believe in the weird Trumpian Fox News, MAGA, OAN, Newsmax fantasy world deserve to be in the fight, in the conversation. And that was the right thing to do, because there are many, many, many Republicans, and more every day as Donald Trump's obvious decline continues to accelerate, who understand it was always a lie. It was always a trick. It was always a scam to try to make people believe that they should compromise with evil, that they should compromise with the man who engineered the January 6th terrorist attack on the Capitol. And by the way, I want to take a quick aside. We were in the hall that night, and I was with the Lincoln Project team, and Renee came, and it was an amazing moment. And I've been to a lot of conventions, a lot. It was an amazing moment because my phone was blowing up as the speech was going on with texts from Republican friends who are ranged from never Trump stalwarts to privately don't like Trump but are afraid they'll lose their jobs. You know the stories, to people that I hadn't talked to in a long time, who were moved by the centrality of the speech, which was not about Democratic policy fantasies or Democratic policy, wish list. The centrality of the speech was about America, about patriotism, and that really punched. But the line that got so much reaction in the hall, and the line that got a lot of reaction from people who had publicly defended Trump to me, was that she condemned January 6th in the clearest, sharpest terms. They know that is a valence inside Trump's coalition that is fragile and dangerous for him, because he did it. And he'll do it again. But what we saw was a speech that it was a home run. As I tweeted out that night, 10-10, no notes, which of course, I can't imagine that anyone doesn't understand that phrase, because it's a common term of art in society. But 5,000 MAGAs at my time were like, "No, there were notes. Use the teleprompter." 10-10 no notes means there are no revisions to the speech, idiots. So look, it was an effective speech. I thought it was stunningly well delivered. I thought she was poised. And again, I say this because, folks, these things matter. The suit was perfect. Her hair was perfect. The look was presidential from top to bottom. There was nothing about the staging that I would have done differently. And I will tell you something else. And the thing that, again, is terrifying Republicans in this speech is that she was stronger. She was on the strong side of the argument, stronger on national security by leaps and bounds, by thousands of miles, by light years stronger than Trump on national security. He's a proximate danger to this country. And she called it out. And she basically got out there and said, these are the fundamentals of the Harris doctrine, which I just coined. She didn't say that, but I just coined it. And it's a doctrine of American strength in the world. It is not a doctrine of cruelty or caprice or trying to turn NATO into a protection racket, as Donald Trump would. And it is not a philosophy that believes that our troops are suckers and losers. Stronger on law and justice, telling the stories of how she not only prosecuted criminals, but also in the cases where they deserved a path to provide restitution and rehabilitation, provided that. That's where America's at, folks. And she was stronger on like the core of the presidency, the fundamental duty to uphold things like free elections, peaceful transitions of power, the rule of law, the Constitution, the traditions of the office. And basically it was a promise to return honor and dignity and justice to the presidency. And I think that is an enormously appealing speech. She loves this country, guys. She loves America. And I don't mean just the trappings, and I don't mean just the helicopters, the planes, the Secret Service guys. She obviously loves this country, and she told the story of her life. And it was a story millions and millions of Americans know. They know it from their parents. They know it from their grandparents. Some of them know it on their own personal experience. It was a story of an American life. And I think that was so important. It was natural. It was visceral. People felt it. It wasn't schmaltzy. It wasn't cheesy, but it let people know who she is. And millions of Americans know that story. Whereas very few Americans know the story of having your Klansman racist father give you $450 million so you can begin gambling it and losing it in a series of scams, frauds, and investments that fail in New York City. Very few people don't relate to Kamala Harris cooking Sunday dinner. No one relates at a fundamental level to Donald Trump living in a gilded mansion that looks like Saddam and Liberace got together to decorate it. But I think it really has the potential to be a realigning speech. I think it's important. I think the tenets of that speech, the reaction, the symptomatic reaction they've caused, tells me a lot about how effective it was. So first off, you had Donald Trump, while the convention is still on, calling into Fox. And it was so off the rails. It was so crazy. It was so ranty that, now get this, folks, Fox hung up on Donald Trump. They hung up the phone on Donald Trump. So then he calls Newsmax. And I don't watch Newsmax. I let that one sink into the obscurity it deserves. But Trump did not understand what was happening. He didn't like what was happening. And I'll tell you, and I want to wrap up about the speech here in a second. One of the things he really didn't like about the speech, and his crazy truth social postings for the hours after, showed me three things. Big bump of Adderall, a feral instinct for the danger he is now in, and a showman's instinct for the fact that she's better at this than he is. She's better at connecting. He hates that. He hates that a lot. Donald Trump came from the old celebrity model in New York. They go to Elaine's at night. They're on page 6. They're the gossip column. And The Apprentice gave people this idea that Donald Trump was this rich, powerful, smart, capable businessman. When he's not that guy, it really upsets him. When people know he's not that guy, it really upsets him. And let's be real. No one who has run against Donald Trump has had the same showmanship factor. Joe Biden won for a lot of reasons, but it wasn't that he was a bigger showman than Trump. Harris's showmanship is much more constrained, much more based on a natural charisma rather than a trained and crafted, sort of BS-y reality TV show persona. People like her because they like her. Her favorability rating is going up like a rocket right now, folks. It has been, and this is deeply concerning to the Trump team. Before I wrap up on the speech stuff and the convention stuff, the vibes are real. The energy level is sky high, through the roof. The idea of building a bigger coalition than the old Democratic coalition has very much taken hold. And Harris, in that speech, and folks I talk to over and over again, they're out to recruit and persuade and get independents and a lot of Republicans to finally end this nightmare. I think they're going to do it. A lot of work ahead, but the sense of purpose there was amazing. And I got to say, the Lincoln Project team was there this week. We did a lot of work there this week with allied groups. We did a lot of work there producing some content, and met with a lot of our folks, a lot of our fundraising folks, a lot of our operations folks, and it was couldn't express to you the welcome we got, and the welcome the team got, and how much people understand that we may not agree with them on every policy question, but this is a battle, and people who are fighters need to go to the front, and we're fighters, and everybody acknowledges that. It was a very heartening kind of thing. So those vibes are real, guys. Those vibes are very real. I think that it is an enormously important moment for the Democratic Party to have separated itself from one other thing in the past. We've been arguing about this for ages. Take back the damn flag, okay? Take back the flag. We've said it 100 times. The iconography, the symbols of America do not belong to the Republican Party. They are not Donald Trump's personal property. They are not MAGA Inc.'s personal property. Those things are for every American. And the dirty little secret the Democrats didn't love for a long time was those symbols that they may be fraught with some extra meaning, but they are still the symbols of America. You can't disqualify using the flag in your iconography, in your conventions, in your public positions, if you're the president of the United States. Our painful history is all wrapped up in that flag. And it's a painful history that has pride in it now, too, and a change of direction. And that floor during the convention was a sea of American flags, an absolute ocean of American flags. And people were proud. They were quintessentially American. They were there because they were involved and engaged in the fundamental small d democratic work of electing a leader of this great republic. They were proud of it. And I'm so glad they understood this. I'm so glad they scaled up on it. I'm so glad that this was not a convention of bitching and complaining and shitting on America. It was a convention that loved this country. These people love this country too. It's not a personal possession of the Republican Party, and they got it. I'm so that I got to tell you, truly proud. So I want to get to two more things in this conversation today because I think one of them is it's gonna absolutely break my brain if I hear one more Republican say this. There was a moment during Tim Walz's speech accepting the vice presidential nomination where his son, Gus, started pumping his fist and crying, shouting. And immediately, the MAGA attack machine, Ann Coulter, Dinesh D'Souza, all the weirdos, all the scumbags, they jumped in. This is weird. What the fuck is wrong with him? Oh, he's obviously just like his dad, a liberal cuck crying. Gus Walz was on the floor saying, "I love you, Dad." Saying, "That's my dad." You low motherfuckers. If you didn't take 30 fucking seconds to read the material, to brief yourselves before you acted like complete assholes, you would have learned that Gus Walz is neurodivergent. That Gus Walz has an anxiety disorder, an ADHD. That Gus Walz has special needs. But instead, they dug in. Now, some of them deleted their tweets eventually. Some of them issued some half-ass, I'm sorry if you were offended, apologies. But this really told me a lot. It reminded me just how much the cruelty is the point. It reminded me just how much the lavish cruelty is the point. Now, I mentioned it. I did a video about it. And then I got attacked by Sarah Palin, who goes, "Why didn't you attack?" I've never spoken Trig Palin's name in my life. Certainly never attacked him. I never discussed Barron Trump until he became a part of the campaign in the last 6 months. Never talked about him. I've written about this for years. Leave the kids out of it. Civilians are civilians. Soldiers are soldiers. Every other Trump child, I never even gave Tiffany all that much shit because she's not really in the middle of the grift or middle of the scam. But the attacks on Walz's kid, it really shows you that there's this dumb, ugly subculture inside the right that loves to jump on shit on social media. I was a part of it, guys. I fully own it. I loathe cruelty to people who have less than you, who have challenges you don't have, who have difficulties you don't have. It makes me so fucking angry to see people attack a kid with special needs. It tells you every fucking thing you need to know about the Trump campaign and the Trump movement and the MAGA movement and why they are not part of the American mainstream. You know what? If Donald Trump was a man, if Donald Trump was a fucking man, he would have picked up the phone and called Tim Walz and said, I'm so sorry what those people said about your son. If he was a man, but he's not. Now, there were some Republicans, I will I praise them, who got out there and said, Ben Shapiro, we don't agree on a whole lot, but Ben Shapiro said, this is a very sweet moment, actually. A lot of other Republicans condemned this because they also know that the performative MAGA bullshit of the Ann Coulters of the world, of the Dinesh D'Souza's of the world, of the Jay Webbers of the world, is meant to be transgressive and cruel and meant to upset people, meant to make people react in ways that, of outrage and horror. That's not a basis for a party. And for Ann Coulter to talk about anyone's life and their children, a single woman who lives on Marlboro Reds and boxed wine and rage, yeah, you're not exactly mother of the fucking year. So I think you're going to see a lot of this kind of thing in the next few weeks, just as you're going to try to see Trump and the Republicans impose their weird alternate reality on Harris and Walz. Everything they've thrown at them so far has failed. Everything has failed. It's failed because Trump is failing. It's failed because Trump is like the one ring of the Republican Party. It's already in Mount Doom. It just isn't quite melted all the way yet. This is their ability to set the agenda and the narrative. As much as the media would like to try to both sides this thing, Harris is rightly not playing that game. And by the way, when I hear reporters bitching, and look, guys, I love reporters. I love reporting. The media is a vital and essential part of our democracy. It is protected in the Constitution. I am not anti-media or anti-press, but I will tell you that one of the reasons the American people are having a lot of trouble with the media right now is they bitch that they haven't had a 17-hour sit-down interview with Kamala Harris about page 4,972 of an imaginary climate change plan. But with Donald Trump, he goes out and lies his ass off in the most insane ways. And then they're like, oh, well, everybody knows that about Trump. These are not equivalent candidates anymore. These are not equal candidates. This isn't a Democrat versus a Republican. This is a Democrat versus a man who is off his damn rocker. You guys know it. All you MAGA listeners listening now, you know it too. You know he's lost it. Now, look, this is going to be a hard race. It's going to be a very ugly race. We still have a lot of hard and brutal work to do in the next few weeks. But Donald Trump is not who he was. And you guys know it. But I really want to encourage my friends in the media to stop treating these as equivalent candidates. They are not. They are not. And stop taking Trump's statements and writing stories and headlines, just reporting just the assertion without the correction. If Kamala Harris says Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, there are many arguments underpinning that statement. Many. When Donald Trump says Kamala Harris is a Marxist communist, there are none. None whatsoever. Zero. And I know these words have a sort of talismanic power amongst the MAGA, but they're all bullshit. And you and I know it, and they know it. But it's a sign of, in some ways, the contempt of Trump for the media that he goes out and says these things and doesn't even try to spin it down. The last piece of big news I wanted to talk about from last week is one more piece of insanity from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., noted falconry enthusiast, brainworm victim, bear mangler, and now, as we've learned today, At one point, he took his children to the beach with a chainsaw to cut the head off of a dead whale, then bungeed said whale head to the top of their family minivan, and the children were forced to put plastic bags on their heads because of, and I quote, the whale goo that was coming down upon them. Now, this may seem like a kind of nutty little anecdote and sort of funny, but Donald Trump is now accepting the endorsement and help of RFK Jr. He has already engaged in an illegal conversation with RFK Jr. as a quid pro quo for what Kennedy would get for his endorsement. That is illegal in the United States of America. But I'm sure you're shocked to find that Donald Trump is criming in some way. That is new news. No one could have ever seen that one coming. But look, a lot of people are asking me, like, is there anything that this is going to do to the campaign? So typically third parties, trust me, I know, will ride in the 8, 9, 10 range until the very close of the campaign. And then they start to spin off their supporters back to their sort of general, natural political homes. In this case, I don't think RFK helps Trump so dramatically because a lot of RFK's supporters are in states Trump is already going to win. A lot of his demo is people Trump was already going to get. RFK is also going to still be stuck on the ballot in a lot of states. There'll be a lot of states where RFK is still on the ballot as, he's waited too late to get off the ballot in a lot of states. A lot of states have ballots already going out and absentees already going out now. But look, this is a truly weird guy, a truly bad guy. And look, we're not going to relitigate RFK Jr. right now. We're not going to relitigate how sick and weird this guy is, even though he did cut off the head of a whale and strap it to the top of a minivan. I mean, look, my kids had some adventurous things in their lives. Okay, we did a lot of stuff that involved dogs and horses and hunting and da 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 da. I never put a whale head on the top of the car, not one time ever. But look, he's a sick guy. He's a fucked up guy. And the initial plan from Steve Bannon and Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson and all these other idiots was to put Kennedy on the ballot to hurt Joe Biden and hurt the Democratic ticket because of the Kennedy family name. The Kennedy family has been so open and outright on this from the beginning, and even more so now that I think he's basically managed to separate himself from his family's image. He's not a great guy. He's not a leader. He's not a bold leader for anything that matters in the country. This is a freaky, weird, fucked up guy. Now, there is a little weird subtext to this that is kind of amusing, actually. J.D. Vance probably reacted in horror when Donald Trump during the press conference with Kennedy, or during the event with Kennedy accepting the endorsement, when Donald Trump says, "This is our ticket," and then retweets people talking about, or retruths people talking about RFK as VP. If I were you, JD, I'd get myself a food taster and get some of those level 4 protective bulletproof plates for your vest. Look, we'll see what Kennedy does in this thing, but right now his novelty is gone. Right now he can't draw cameras again. He can't draw press again. He'll be a sort of social media gadfly online. But I think most of the people he would have gotten would have gone to Trump anyway. So I don't think there's a net change. I think those people would have broken back to Trump at the end of the campaign before the vote. They were always Trump-ish. Why take Diet Trump? So look, Kennedy again is a very dark character, a very weird character, and I don't think we're going to see the impact of Kennedy on this ticket like we perhaps anticipated earlier in the game. The other person I think that's still trying desperately to have an impact on the game is Jill Stein, trying to now tell progressives that, oh, Kamala Harris isn't sufficiently left wing. And okay, thanks. Call back to your fucking boss in Moscow, Jill. The woman is the shillness of that, the plant nature of that is so outrageous that, we should really dismiss her. But it's fascinating to me to look at my social media feeds right now and find these hardcore MAGAs. I'm a 1A, 2A, Christian, God-fearing, conservative, Bible belter, I believe in the law and the Constitution, and I'm for Donald Trump, and I love RFK and Jill Stein. Okay. It's called cognitive dissonance. Learn it, love it, overcome it. But folks, this is going to be a busy week. I have been on the road now for almost 3 weeks. I'm currently in beautiful San Francisco, California, doing some fundraising and giving a speech tomorrow night, actually Monday night, as I'm recording this. And so look forward to seeing you again in the next episode of The Enemies List. If you could do me a favor, the whole subscribe thing, I know it's cliche and tired and boring and everything else. It really matters. It really helps uplift the show. It helps push the content, helps get things out there into the ether of the algorithmically defined mystery orb world of how podcasts go up and down in the ratings. And I would like to go up. And we're done really well with this audience. I really appreciate you folks. But if you could subscribe, do all the things on that, follow it on your Apple Podcasts, give it 5 stars, do a rating if you choose. And we will see you again next time on The Enemies List.